please state your name and your date of birth.
Victor Ivan Rideau, 4/16/48. Originally, I came out here in '67, November '67. I met this beautiful young lady, and we decided to have a child. And that young child happened to be the reason why I came to Venice, or I never would have seen Venice. Well, his mother was raised here. Jason's mother, my son's mother, was raised here. So she was here, and then I came out here to be with them, and then I ended up staying. So when I got to the neighborhood, everybody had been there. The families were large. They'd been there for generations, and everybody knew everybody. You couldn't do anything. Everybody knew everybody. And it was really one of the friendliest places, neighborhoods I've ever seen. The people were so just real, and down there was just so comfortable. Anybody you see, you stop and have a conversation with anybody, because once you're here, they know you because you stand out. So after a while, you're just part of the community. It's wonderful, it's like being in a big family. And then from there, because of the way everyone was all from probably Texas or Canada, everybody was all mixed together, different families, so you get to know everybody. They're all just, if they're not related, they're very good friends. If you were down the street throwing rocks in the alley and Uncle Mobile came by, who may or may not be related to you, he could just give you one look and that would stop all. That was like living in a small village or a small town. Anybody was going to tell on you. Anywhere you go, you were being observed. So it was pretty good. I like that for children. For them, not so much for us adults, but for the children, that was great.
And then you mentioned Mobile. Is there anything special that you can tell us about the McCowans and those guys?
Yeah, there was a large family, and they all pretty much still lived here. So there was like several generations of them. Almo McCowan had a great big stake bed truck that he had on one of the vacant lots near his house, and he would keep it clean and take care of himself. And he did a lot of hauling and moving for people from Malibu all the way down here to even when the marina started being built. And Mobile was like one of the old godfathers of the neighborhood. He knew everybody and had been here the longest, and very popular fellow. And he had in the garage in back of their mother's house, the old Mrs. McCall, and in the garage they had put a large professional kitchen in there, and they used to fry fish on the weekends and sell fish dinners and everything. So Mobile and Almo would go out on their boat and go fishing, and they would, from what they tell me, they go out where the sports fishermen were, and they'd come by and tell them, "We're trying to fish for our family and we haven't caught anything." The people would throw them some of their fish, and they'd come. Those were interesting people. One time a guy told me, if you haul this old PT boat away, old military PT boat, he said, haul this boat away, you could have it. So he hauled it over to the vacant lot, and he's out there taking it apart, and I said, Mobile, what are you gonna do with this thing? The slats all, he said, this is a PT boat from World War II. I said, what are you gonna do with it? I'm gonna show you. And when he started taking all this wood apart, everything in there was brass. I mean, the drive shaft, he had several $100 worth of brass in this thing. He pulled all the brass out, the scavenged. Then he said, I'm gonna have to do something to get these screws out of here. So I didn't know what he was gonna do. Next thing I know, he set fire to the darn thing and it started burning. And he was, finally when the fire trucks came and put it out, then he started going through and breaking the ashes down and tearing it apart to get the brass out. But there's a lot of interesting things down there, some interesting characters. My father-in-law, David Charles Lovett, also known as Hippie Charlie throughout the neighborhood, was a really impressive person. He was tall, he was muscular, he was real athletic, and he dressed a little, he had a leather hat with a big brim, and he walked around with, he wore a lot of jewelry made out of old forks and topaz, and he was really interesting, very intelligent, highly read, could speak English and Spanish fluently. He was independently employed.
How so?
His employment consisted of resale of contraband.
And that would have been ostensibly kind of your father-in-law.
That was my father-in-law, a very interesting character. Very healthy. He knew all about how to eat properly and exercise. He didn't have a car. He'd ride his 10-speed, and he had friends as far as Malibu. He'd ride up to Malibu and visit them and come back the next day on his 10-speed. He's a very interesting character. And he was one of the original, everyone in Venice knew Hippie Charlie. Well, the Oakwood part of Venice was pretty much like an island, because on all sides of it would be a different environment entirely. I mean, it was like outside of the community, there was almost no minorities at all. It was all white on all sides. Within the boundaries of Oakwood, when I came here, you had blacks and Latinos, and there were a few hippie types maybe, but everybody was. But when you got outside of that, the other parts of Venice, if you came down towards the beach, then there would be more of that's a different culture entirely. You had more of your book writers and people that were into a lot of, I don't know what you call it. They had a bookstore at this restaurant that everybody went to. And I used to run into people there that I knew from LA City College that wrote and everything, that lived out in this area. But as far as the community itself, it was pretty much like within the confines of that was different. This part of Venice down here, we'd come down and skate and hang around for a minute. We didn't really stay down here very much. Like the younger kids did, they were surfing and being on the beach. And as time went on, it just started moving further and further. More and more of the neighborhood of Oakwood was being purchased out. Well, like everything else, by the community changing, it didn't change rapidly, but it started gradually. But as it changed, there was some improvements. Some things were better. There really wasn't any big shock or anything. But slowly over time, you realize that the neighborhood starts changing. People started buying into the neighborhood that had never lived there before. We started getting people of, let's say, of a higher income maybe, buying these older homes and starting to remodel them or tear them down. So gradually the neighborhood started getting empty. People started moving out.